Kia ora, welcome. This week we're exploring a new and strange story about links between New Zealand's spy agencies and Fiji's military regime. Well, in Parliament last week, New Zealand First Leader Winston raised a series of questions about illegal activity by the New Zealand Security Intelligence Service and the Government Communications Security Bureau. They were inspired by information he's obtained on a joint SIS and police raid last year on the Auckland home of a former Fijian cabinet minister, Rajesh Singh. Peters says the SIS acted illegally in the course of the raid. He also suggests that Rajesh Singh, who is a New Zealand resident, is one of the 80-plus New Zealanders spied on illegally by the Government Communications Security Bureau. But, more surprising, he quoted a text from Fiji's Commander of Land Forces to Rajesh Singh, saying he was about to be raided by the SIS, a text received by Singh at the exact time the raid was happening. Well, to date, Winston Peters' questions have been given short shrift by the government. So, is there more to come? Winston Peters joins me now. Mr. Peters, thanks for joining us. Tell me, what are your grounds for suggesting that the SIS raid on the Fijian Democracy and Freedom Movement members was illegal?
If you have an SIS officer not prepared to identify themselves, and worse still, not prepared to show the place or the household who's been raided the warrant, both of which are legal requirements, then it suggests to me that some illegality must be going on.
Okay, but whose word have you got for that?
I got the word of the person called Rajesh Singh, a former cabinet minister, who made a complaint, you recall, to the Inspector General, never got a reply, complained to the Ombudsman, did get a reply, but of course the Ombudsman cannot investigate the Prime Minister.
Well, that's not going to go very far, is it? Is there any other recourse that Rajesh Singh and others would have?
Yes, he came to me.
Yeah.
And I've exposed it in Parliament, and I want some answers because there are a number of things which are clearly outstanding. And the core one is, how could the Fiji regime, military dictatorship as it is, be aware of an SIS raid at the very time it's happening?
I want to come back to that in a minute, but could you tell me what information do you have on the SIS claim that there was credible evidence that justified the raid?
Well, if there was, they would have shown the warrant. And second, in an ancillary or associated case where the raid itself was at issue, in this case, when Internal Affairs got within a week of the hearing, and I do not think they acted alone, they pulled their case and conceded it.
This was, what, a passport case?
Yes.
Okay. Can you be absolutely sure of the grounds on which that was withdrawn, or was it simply a passport matter?
Well, if it was simply a passport matter, they would have stuck to their reasons for not issuing the passport in the first place. They had no other reason, if they were sustaining their argument, not to have gone through with it, if, of course, they're observing the law. What's
your response to the reported comment by the Commander of Land Forces, Colonel Mosese Tikoiga, that he sent no texts about the raid to Rajesh Singh, and that the Fiji regime has made no request for assistance to the New Zealand government?
Well, bull dust might be the phrase for the kind of behaviour that you can get away with in Fiji, but it's not for the case of New Zealand. The simple fact is, it was his cell phone. The conversations by way of text are his conversations. We know much more than we have let on thus far. And when he says it's not my cell phone, he's being obtuse in the extreme or devious in the extreme, in that we know who's got the cell phone now.
Mm-hmm. So more to come.
Yes.
Because I ask you, what evidence do you have, or have you seen that the raid was actually mounted at the behest of Fiji's military dictatorship?
Because they knew about it. And there's no way that they could possibly know about a raid happening at the very time when the man is being interviewed by the SIS that he gets the text. Now, the man's phone and computer was taken off him, and that text message, which can be an alternative for verified, was wiped from that man's cell phone. Now that in itself is a criminal act.
Okay. Isn't it at all plausible that the Colonel's friends in New Zealand were also keeping a close eye on Rajesh Singh and the other members of the Democracy and Freedom Movement?
Well, if you believe in Santa Claus, yes, that's possible. I don't.
Well, we can differ on that. I quite like
Well,
Santa Claus
it's not
myself.
it's not pure serendipity that all these subsequent.
Yeah, I know, but I'm suggesting
texts.
to you that the Fijians equally have an interest in keeping an eye on people who might cause them problems back at home.
Yes, and it's also possible that a foreign minister about to go in a matter of days to Fiji to try and change the relationship between New Zealand and Fiji, it's quite possible that he's got, and the Prime Minister, have answers to give New Zealanders about this coincidence, which I do not believe is a coincidence.
Okay.
Because in a future, later text, the guy, this Fiji Commander of Land Forces,
The Colonel.
yes, well, he says that they're going to expel you. Now, you know, he just knew too much. And he gave it away in those texts anyway as to what they knew.
What was he talking about, going to expel you? Was Rajesh Singh involved in this passport case, and was he going to have his passport revoked?
No, he's not involved in the passport case other than in the associated illegal raid.
Okay. In what way would that have been germane to the case relating to a passport? I mean,
well, germane in this context, if I was acting for the fellow on the passport and I was a lawyer, I would know that I've got a pretty strong case here of not even being heard because the authorities don't want it to be heard.
There's another statement that you've made I'd like to ask you about, and that is that you've asserted that Rajesh Singh and other associates are among the 80 New Zealanders who've been illegally spied on by the GCSB.
That's not an assertion, it's a question. Are they amongst the 80? Well, it's a fair question to ask.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about that.
Well, I'm asking a question.
It was presented in the report I read as an assertion.
Yeah, no, I asked the question, and of course I'm still waiting for the answer.
You've got more questions to come, obviously.
Yes.
Again, on what basis did you tell Parliament that Messrs Key and McCulley have some explaining to do about their abuse of power?
Well,
have you got any evidence whatsoever that they know or knew about that raid?
Well, the Prime Minister, out of Madura in the Marshall Islands, where he was at the forum meeting of Pacific leaders, said he knew about the case. And if he knew about the case, he being the head of the SIS, must have known that there was a complaint to the Inspector General, that there was a complaint to the Ombudsman, that there were serious concerns about the manner of this raid. And I put alongside that some very compelling evidence to do with the texts, many more than the 16th that you know about, that I have made a part of my speech and have made public. And the picture points in one direction. Acknowledged by the Fiji regime. Why? Because the government of New Zealand and Australia at the time, and you remember Foreign Minister Carr was of the same bent as Mary McCulley, we need to enter a new phase of rapprochement with Fiji, and this would be a pretty good sweetener, excepting it appears that we're acting at the behest of a military dictatorship.
Do you have any legal document in your possession to back your statements?
I have the complaint to the Ombudsman, obviously. I have the Ombudsman's reply. And the reason why,
thank you very much for your...
Well, no, unfortunately I cannot. Because of the law.
I cannot do anything
I can't
to investigate the Prime Minister.
But I suggest you see a lawyer. And then I have clearly the texts. Now, when there's blood all over the floor, fingerprints all over the place, and a bit of DNA as well, I kind of think it points somewhere.
Do you have more documents that you'll be tabling in Parliament?
There'll be further evidence I'll be tabling in Parliament, yes.
Do you think you'll be able to table them in Parliament?
Well, if I'm allowed to, and why would they stop me? Unless they don't
they simply say no.
Yeah, you say no for a purpose, don't you? You say no because you want to cover up the facts. Why would you not, as the Prime Minister or government, want to see all the evidence?
Tell me this. If there was credible evidence that New Zealand was being used as a base for planning an illegal act in another country, in your time as Minister of Foreign Affairs...
Now, hang on. You mean a legal act in our country?
No, in another country.
I didn't
an
say
illegal
that.
act in another country. In other words,
I didn't say
the
that.
point of, no, you didn't say that. And what I'm saying to you is, if there was credible evidence in your time as Minister of Foreign Affairs, wouldn't you want to have the SIS take a look at that situation and perhaps intervene?
If there was evidence of an illegal act planned out of New Zealand in another country,
That's what I'm getting at.
yes, well, I was never the head of the SIS.
No, I'm not suggesting
But
you
I
were,
would-
but as Minister
but
of Foreign
if it-
Affairs, you'd be consulted on a matter of
If
that
there
nature.
was illegality, that suspected illegality would be recited in the warrant, and the reason why you must present a warrant is it's your authority to be there. If I walk into your home and say I'm from the SS, I've got a warrant to investigate you and your technology and your equipment and all assistant and associate information, I've got to show my document. That's my authority to be there.
Yeah,
And they said it was classified. That's illegal.
Okay, so there's an illegality that you're alleging in regard.
Two illegalities.
In regard, I'm just going to list them because yes, there are two that you're alleging. One is in the failure to present proper documentation when requested, and the other was, in fact, the
Identification.
presence of credible evidence which was later withdrawn.
Well, the other illegality was the failure to identify who you are.
No, I classified that as sort of the presentation of the document. Sorry.
Well, you're talking about the pretext. That's the third one.
Yes, I was.
And
Yeah.
it was a pretext because there never was any evidence. Otherwise, they would have prosecuted them. They didn't, did they?
What avenues do you have, independent of Parliament, now to pursue this matter?
I've got a lot of witnesses, people who have, because of I have opened this up, prepared to talk to me, and it gives me a chance to compile a pretty comprehensive picture. But starkly out there at the moment is this allegation. SIS raid is taking place. A Fijian leading member of the regime, the military dictatorship, knows about it. I want to know how that happened.
Okay. Tell me, in your view, has the regime in Fiji made sufficient progress towards an adequate form of democracy to actually merit a relaxation of the sanctions applied by New Zealand?
No. The jury or the judicial system in Fiji is a sham. The constitution has been, the worthwhile one has been thrown out. A new one has been drafted now. It is not the result of consultation or proper cooperation. And so free, fair and honest elections do not appear to be what is the prospect into the future. Until that happens, we should stick to our present position.
Winston Peters, thank you very much. New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters. And coming next, the man at the centre of our latest spy agency controversy, Rajesh Singh, on the Beatson interview. Rajesh Singh was Minister of Youth and Sport in the last democratically elected government of Fiji, ousted in 2006 by Commodore Frank Bainimarama's military coup. He's now a permanent New Zealand resident, but Rajesh Singh also remains active in the Fijian democracy and freedom movement. For the first time now, you're going to hear firsthand his account of what happened during the strange raid on his home by the SIS and the police, and his incredible text exchanges leading up to and during that raid with Fiji's Commander of Land Forces, Colonel Mosese Tiko Itonga. Rajesh Singh, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start by finding out when you first discovered that you were actually being raided by the SIS.
Yes, I was previously cautioned by my friend, Land Force Commander, that I will be raided soon.
Yes?
Yeah, but I didn't take it. I just took it lightly. You know, I thought he's just joking. As previously we joke and we talk about rugby and other stuff. So I thought, oh, he's just threatening me or joking with me. You know.
Okay, but I mean, they turned up at your door. What did they say?
Yes, it was funny. They came to, and they didn't come from the front door. They came through the back door. And my son was asleep in the room. And then my son came. He said, oh, there's a lady and a gentleman wanted to talk to you. They said they're from New Zealand government. So I said, okay, tell them to just give me 5 minutes, because I was saving these school children. So as soon as I saved them, they left. I closed the door. I went and opened the door, and I said, They say, oh, we're from the New Zealand government and we have a message from the Prime Minister and the Governor General for you. I said, oh, okay. You know how Fiji style, we just say, I said, do you like to come in and have a seat and let's talk? So and they said, oh, okay. So they came in and we sat down and we started talking. And then they said they had the message for me from the Prime Minister and the Governor General that they are funding the constitutional process that was supposed, was headed by Professor Yaz guy.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, but did they actually say at any time that they were from the Security Intelligence Service?
No, not really in the starting. So we started talking, and then they said, then they asked me a few questions, and they said, oh, we're supporting all this. Then I said, why are you supporting an illegal process? This is an illegal process. You are funding and abetting the cause of justice in Fiji because there is a court case that was taken by the former Prime Minister Ngarase against Bainimarama, and the April 2009 court ruling was very clear that the constitution is alive, that Frank Bainimarama's regime is illegal, and we should follow that court ruling. And I said, all this time I've been talking to Phil Goff and other people, and you guys have been pressuring the Fiji government to follow that court ruling. Why? I said, change. And then she said, oh, because we are funding it now, and we want you to be quiet. Actually, zip. That's what the word was, to be quiet and zip. And I said, well, I don't think so. You can, that's my own, you know, I've got my own freedom of speech. And I don't think so you can stop me for that.
And what was their response to that? I mean, why did they actually search your house and seize a computer? Why did they do those things?
Yeah, I think so.
Did they have a warrant? Did they have any papers at all? Did they show you anything?
First thing was, Dave, the funny thing was, when I started asking her this question, that lady was getting agitated. And then she said, oh, that's when she said, oh, we want to ask some more question from you. And I said, and then that's where she bring up, they said, oh, did you hear that Tony, Fullman and Mara were planning to, were plotting to kill Frank Bainimarama? And I said, no, that's news to me. I said, if they were plotting or news like that, I don't do those kind of illegal thing. I said, if there's anything about Tony and Mara, you're talking to the wrong guy. Please go and talk to them. And they said they were here. I said, yeah, they came here because they came to pick up the ID because I had this NRL passes. I was the former patron of Fiji National Rugby League, so they give me 5 passes every year. So Tony called me before, and he said, hey, bro, can you give me the passes? So I said,
That'll
okay,
teach
come
you
and
to
pick
be
it
a
up.
rugby fan.
Yes, I'm a rugby and that. So I gave him that passes.
Okay.
But later, then this lady said that we have, well, after all this, and when I said, and then the funny thing was, she asked me, will I contest the election?
Yeah.
And under which party? So I thought it was a strange question, and I told her straight. I said, look here, I'm a believer of 1997 Constitution, and I will never contest election under another constitution because that will become illegal. And by the way, I will stand for my old party again.
Yes. Okay. But when did they say, well, we want to search your house now?
After a little while,
Okay.
then she
and
said,
did they produce any warrant, search warrant?
no, she didn't produce a warrant, but
search
she
warrant.
told me, yeah, no search warrant, but she told me it's classified. I said, can I have a copy? Or you have,
Classified?
yeah, I said, she said, we have a warrant. I said, okay, if you have a warrant, can you give me a copy? Because that becomes my evidence, I said. I need a copy.
Yeah.
And she said, no, it's classified.
Yes.
And later, soon as later, and then there's another 2 gentlemen came and knocked at the door and they walked in. I said, who are they? Oh, they are police officers in civilian clothing. And they went right to the counter.
Did they produce any identification?
No, not
Did
at
they
all.
produce any warrant?
No.
Neither.
Neither.
How did they come to take the computer in your house?
The computer was on the counter, and I told them that the computer belongs to my daughter, who is asleep in the thing. She's an Auckland Uni student, and she's over 21, and I think so you should ask her permission to take the computer. Even when I use the computer, I have to ask her if I can use the computer. But they didn't bother. She was sleeping in the room. They still went in, took some photos and all those, and then they just took the computer and they seized my phone and took the phone.
They've been returned, but not entirely intact, I understand.
Exactly.
There's a file missing.
Yeah, there's a message on the text that while they were talking to me, when I had the phone with me, and Dikotonga texted me and say, bro, your house will be raided. I said, it's already raided. So those 2 messages has been deleted.
Have you complained to New Zealand officials about this raid?
Yes, I did wrote a letter to the ombudsman,
Yes.
and we did put up a complaint, and then we did get a response from the ombudsman, two response, and they advised us that for us to take the matter up with the Inspector General, and they said,
Security General.
yeah,
Yes.
Security General. So we did that, And
what
I
happened?
told him, how can I do that? And they said they can forward my complaint to,
Yes.
and I called them and I said, go ahead and do that,
Yes.
verbally.
Okay, no, so have you followed up on that and have you heard anything more?
No, I didn't get any information at all from
Have
them.
you thought about going to the police and complaining to them?
Well,
Because they were there,
yes,
and they didn't produce a warrant, they didn't produce identification, and they took property from your house.
Exactly. That's why I thought it was useless for me to go back to the police, because when the police are breaking the law themselves, and under the Parliament Act is very clear, and I've been a New Zealand resident since 2005, they cannot spy or raid on New Zealand resident. And they went ahead and did that. So
Okay.
it was illegal.
Mr. Peters has referred in Parliament to a subsequent court case on a passport matter involving the New Zealand Department of Internal Affairs, where the department suddenly withdrew from the action. He suggests that someone was going to raise this matter of the SIS involvement. Do you know about that?
Well, I didn't know much about it. Later when I found out, and I know who the person is, and if we were called as a witness, and if we had an opportunity, definitely we would have been part of that court case. So we have to clear our name, because we are resident and we are being regarded as terrorists in New Zealand, and that's what they call me now, and it does affect me, and even me and my wife were about to go for a divorce.
Were you engaged in any activities which would be regarded as hostile
No. No.
in any way, shape or form at all?
No, I was just a freedom fighter. I was just writing to Frank directly. I was writing to the New Zealand government, to the Prime Minister, to the Foreign Affairs, and asking them questions, and I was pressing them, because as New Zealand and Australia as big brothers, they should take responsibility and teach Fiji to follow the rule of law.
What is your relationship with the Colonel who sent you more than 16 texts telling you you're about to be raided?
Moses is a friend of mine. We go back a long time ago, over maybe 20 years ago.
I
because his wife-
couldn't figure this, because some of the exchanges were they seemed quite friendly, but they progressively got a little more threatening towards
Yes,
the end.
exactly. And we've been friends since 1988, because his wife was a dietitian in the military, and she came to CWM hospital where my wife was dietitian in charge, and she trained her.
Now, the Colonel now denies that you actually were sent any text by him, and denies the Fiji authorities asked for any assistance from New Zealand. Are you able to prove that he is wrong on either of those points?
Exactly. I've got
You are?
Yes, I've got texts from him from May 2012 and until about 3 months ago.
He says he doesn't use the phone that these texts came from.
Well, there's the phone he's been using. I've spoken to him on that phone, and that phone, the New Zealand Tarana radio, Sanjesh Narayan, has been interviewing him on that mobile all these years. So how is he denying it? And I'm not surprised at all that he will deny this, because why? Because Dritian Mara got kicked out, and he must be afraid that he'll be kicked out too by Frank. But at the same time, as a senior military officer and a land force commander, at least he should have courage, and he should be honest. He shouldn't be lying. I've got texts that I can still prove him.
Now, since this matter came into the public domain about a week ago, what's been happening? Has anybody been contacting you? Has anyone in official circles been in touch with you?
Yes,
New Zealand official circles, I mean.
Not New Zealand official circles, but I had friends and all other people from Fiji and all those. They are all in touch with me, and it was all on news, and people been calling me and asking me, and he said, at least, it's good. At least you guys should clear your name, and it's time that you guys should talk to the New Zealand Prime Minister, that he should apologize to you guys, because that was an illegal raid, and he should apologize to the Fijian community here.
Do you have any reason to believe that you are one of the 80+ New Zealanders who were spied on illegally by the Government Communications Security Bureau?
Yes.
How?
And I think
what is that? Is that because the texts?
It's not only because
the text traffic.
It's not only the text traffic, but I've been writing to the New Zealand government, and I think so. And that's one of the texts said, and that's what Dikotonga said, that the two foreign ministers, Macaulay and Inoke Komombola, were meeting in Fiji, and also discussing our cases and other stuff. And also at the same time, he was talking to his counterpart. And then he said, you have become a thorn in the New Zealand government, because we've been pressing New Zealand.
Could he be making it all up? Just to shut you up?
Well,
I mean, is that plausible?
it's not only to shut me off, but I think the New Zealand government was trying to shut me off when they send the SIS guys and they think they're going to zip my mouth up. And honestly speaking, mate, for me, I've been just taught that way, and that's how my uncle was minister. He was sacked by Ratumara, and then Ratumara brought him back. And I went through the same thing too. But at the bottom line is, when you're fighting for the truth, we have to stand for the truth. And like what the Bible says, if you know the truth shall make you free. And that's what I believe in.
Are you going to take this matter up with the Prime Minister?
Actually, I think so. I will do that now. And I want my name to be cleared because it has affected me, affected my family.
You?
Actually, me and my wife was about to go for a divorce.
Yes.
And there was another 21st birthday party. And I was
A pretty stressful
insulted
time.
there. Yes, and I was insulted by my brother, my wife's cousin, and some other guys there, and I had to leave that party. And the funny thing was, as soon as I left the party there, the next morning I started getting texts from Frank Bainimarama that, oh, Anil Mo got messed up in a party and all these things. Yeah.
So they're keeping an eye on you.
Exactly.
They are keeping an eye on you.
They are keeping an eye on
Are they
me.
active spying in New Zealand?
Exactly. And they got their people here. Radio Tirana is very, very much aligned with them.
And aware.
Yeah.
Of
They
what's
are
happening.
talking, Robert Khan is very much aligned with them, and he's been talking to them. But at the same time, I mean, he's related to me too, Robert. but the bottom line
Doesn't
is...
seem to do you any good.
Exactly. but the bottom line is, if you... And I would like to just ask a simple question to the New Zealand government and the Prime Minister. Because New Zealand was firm believer, they went to Iraq, they went to Afghanistan, they went to Solomons, and they went to Tonga under Bikatawa Declaration. Why didn't they come to Fiji? When our Prime Minister, I was sitting in that meeting when he asked for foreign intervention. So Australia and New Zealand, both signatory to Bikatawa Declaration, they didn't come and assist us.
So you're going to keep up the campaign.
Exactly, I will keep fighting.
Rajesh Singh, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Former Fijian Cabinet Minister Rajesh Singh. Well, we did invite New Zealand's Foreign Affairs Minister Murray McCully to appear on this program to provide a government response. But while he was in Auckland today, he did not accept our invitation. We'll keep asking, but that's all for now. Thanks for your company, and I hope you'll join us again next week on the Beatson interview.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.